today we're talking about Doctor Who cliffhangers. So, cliffhangers have been a very important thing in Doctor Who for a long time. In the new series, they've kind of faded away, which I'm not a fan of. Multi-part stories is generally how Doctor Who's worked, and I think it works better that way. And Series 9 is finally embracing the cliffhangers and two-parters, which I'm happy about. But the classic series is obviously where most of the cliffhangers are, so don't expect like an abundance of new Who on this list. Although there is one, just a little spoiler, because it is a genuinely great cliffhanger and kind of proves the point that New Who should have more cliffhangers when I get onto it anyway. But yeah, so cliffhangers can be really, really good. The point of them, at the very heart, is to get the audience to tune back in next week. And that's kind of what we're looking at, but also just kind of the cool factor, how they help the atmosphere, to make you watch the next episode. That's the point of them. Or at least to get you thinking throughout the week, which makes you want to go back and watch it the next week. So that's kind of what we're looking for here. So this is the top 5 cliffhangers in Doctor Who. So at number 5 we have the Stolen Earth slash Journey's End cliffhanger. So I'm not the biggest fan of this story particularly, but it has a really good cliffhanger. Sure, it's a bit of a cop out in the next episode, but we're not looking at the end result here. We're looking at the actual cliffhanger itself, and this did something really, really well. I can remember 2008, that week, everybody was talking about that cliffhanger, how the Doctor was regenerating, like what's going to happen. He's going to regenerate a new person, he's going to find a way out of it. What? There were loads of rumours. I remember somebody telling me the Doctor was going to regenerate into an old bald man, and it's like, what? Because, and I believed it, because it was always possible. Tennant's era was coming to an end. I mean, after all, even though I had seen some of the classic series, the only full era I'd seen before him was Eccleston. He only left after a season, so I was expecting Tennant regenerate at some point. And so you honestly didn't know, and it was such a great way to make people tune in next week. And I guarantee you, a lot more people watched just because of that cliffhanger than would have. And that's why cliffhangers are so important. They can increase viewership that much more. And I'm glad New Who's finally seeing that with Series 9 having lots of two-parters. So anyway, this is a very good cliffhanger. It does its job excellently. It got people talking, it got people thinking, and that is why it's at number 5. So at number 4 we have the Daleks episode 1 cliffhanger. So obviously the Daleks is an excellent story with some other good, well, quite good cliffhangers. But this one really takes the cake for me because we've never seen the Daleks before at this point. Think of it from the perspective of somebody watching in 1963. Nobody knows what a Dalek is. Barbara spends ages wandering around this city, which is slowly closing itself on her, gets trapped in a corridor, and all of a sudden this kind of sucker arm appears and moves towards her. And it's like, well, you can't really see what it is. So back then you'd be like, what is that? Like, seriously, what is that? And that would have, made you start thinking, what could it be? What does it look like? What does it want? It's thought-provoking, and that's what a good cliffhanger does. It makes you want to know what happens next week. What is that? And, obviously this cliffhanger does that well, and back then I'm pretty sure it would have encouraged people to tune in next week because you want to know what that thing is if you, thought about it at all. And it's just a great way of building tension. I'm so glad I didn't actually show the Dalek in the cliffhanger and just its arm. That's what works so well about this. And that's why it comes in at number 4. So at number 3 we have episode 2 of Tomb of the Cybermen. Now, the last few I was just kind of talking about, it's thought-provoking, gets you think for the week. The rest of these are kind of not like that. They're fun cliffhangers. They're kind of tension. There's a lot of tension. It's edgy. It makes you want to tune in next week, but for different reasons rather than just being thought-provoking. But anyway, why is this a good cliffhanger? Well, after all the suspense, the Cybermen are finally released, and the controller is revealed to you, and he says those chilling lines: "You belong to us. You shall be like us." That is what Cybermen are about. Getting people and converting them into one of their own. And just the way he says it, like, it's tingly, it gives you goosebumps, it's quite scary. It's a very, very good cliffhanger, and just a great way to build tension. It's like, oh god, how are they going to get out of this? The Cybermen have them, and then they're going to turn them into them. It's just something that, it worked great as a cliffhanger and just really proves what the Cybermen are capable of when in the hands of a good writer, which, to be fair, doesn't happen often, but when it does, oh boy, when it does, you get some good episodes, and that's why the Cybermen are well remembered, and that's why this comes in at number 3. So at number 2 we have the War Games. Now, I've forgotten exactly which episode this is. It might be episode 6, maybe? I'm really not sure. I haven't watched the War Games in a fair bit. It's one of my favourite episodes ever. I absolutely love it. But that's beside the point because this is a really good cliffhanger. And just in general, the War Games cliffhangers are a very high quality. Each one of them, there's so much tension. It just makes you want to keep on going and watching the episode, which is needed in something like a 10-part story, which worked back then because it made you tune in next week, and works now even because you might be like, oh, I'm starting to get a little fatigued by these 10 parts, and all of a sudden that cliffhanger comes in like, I can't stop now. I've got to keep watching. And so obviously that you're gonna keep watching, and that's obviously a good thing. And the particular cliffhanger I chosen as my favourite because we're only allowing one per serial is one where Carstairs is about to shoot Zoe. I don't know why. There's just something about the kind of atmosphere that's at that time, and Zoe thinks she's escaped, and then just the way Carstairs says, "You are a German spy. I must kill you," and then the chamber in the gun kind of turns a bit. Oof. It's so well shot, such good sound effects, such a good atmosphere. It works so well. I love it. I honestly love it. It isn't like maybe as objectively good as the others on this list, but it's just a joy to watch it, and it works really well as a cliffhanger, and that's why it's at number 2. So, a few honourable mentions before we get into number 1. The first honourable mention is The Ark, episode 2. So, kind of the Doctor and crew go to this ship, which they, solve a thing, whatever, watch the episode, and then go. But because there's a fault in the TARDIS, they return, but 700 years later. And before then, there was a statue that the people there were building. They said it's going to take 700 years to complete. And then they come back and the statue's finished. Which it was meant to be a statue of a man, but because on board they have these slaves called monoids. They're the kind of slaves, kind of not the voluntary, because they asked for the humans to help them, and the humans did, as long as they served them. And that's kind of how it goes. And then when they come in, there's this slow shot of the statue after Dodo says the statue is finished. It goes up to reveal that the head is a monoid. That works incredibly well. Because it's like, how did that happen? Did the monoids take over? How did they take over? Did the humans survive? What's going on? That's an excellent, just such a good cliffhanger, and it's pretty good. It really well shot for a Hartnell episode because obviously they have a lot of budget restraints, and yeah, it's one of the most famous images from the Ark, like the statue of the monoid holding the globe. It's great, and that's why it's an honorable mention. Another one is Pyramids of Mars, episode 1. This one isn't necessarily the greatest of cliffhangers as a cliffhanger, but it's just really cool the way he just steps out and says, I am Sutek's servant, he needs no other. I bring Sutek's gift of death to all humans, and then just proceeds to put his hands on his shoulders and they burn and he cripples to the ground. It's so evil. It's great. And, that's why I really like it. Another one is Earthshock. A lot of honourable mentions this time because I like a lot of cliffhangers. When the Cybermen are revealed in episode 1, that's a pretty cool scene. We all know about that, really. If you don't, well, go watch Earthshock and think of it from the perspective as we haven't seen the Cybermen for quite a long time. Another one is Trial of a Time Lord, episode 13. This one is really well shot, really dramatic, especially with the music. It's where the 6th Doctor's getting pulled into the ground by all these arms while the Valiard's like, goodbye, Doctor. It's really, really fun to watch. It's such a great cliffhanger. It may seem a little melodramatic, but I don't care. It's a lot of fun to watch. And yeah, so they're my honourable mentions. Now let's get on to number 1. So at number 1 we have the Caves of Androzani, episode 3. So you saw this coming. If you didn't, well then you probably haven't seen the story or know about the immense love people have for it, because it is an excellent story. Not my favourite ever, but it's in my top 10. And I'd say objectively, from an objective standpoint, it's the best episode of Doctor Who. But this cliffhanger works so well, because the story just kind of flows along really nicely. There's all this tension being built up, all these shit going down everywhere. The Doctor's just trying to survive, trying to help Perry, and then he just has this utter speech as like a gun's pointed at his face while he's crashing a ship into a planet in an attempt to go back and rescue Perry. He's like, I can't quote the entire thing right now, but go watch it. It's so well shot, it's so well delivered. Davison does an excellent job, and it works as a cliffhanger. He's like, we gotta watch the next episode now. We have to. And yeah, it really works. It's really enjoyable and just really tops off what is one of the best Doctor Who episodes of all time, to be perfectly honest, and that's why it's number 1 on my list. So that was my top 10 cliffhangers. If you have any cliffhangers which you thought should have been on here, but weren't, just comment below. I might also do a top 10 worst top 10, not top 10, top 5 worst cliffhangers. Top 10 would be a bit too much. I think it'd go on for way too long because I always talk for ages. But yeah, because there are a lot of bad cliffhangers in Doctor Who, especially in the classic series. Oh, there's so many shit ones. I find they're quite bad in the 70s usually. I don't know why, that's just how it is. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you back next time in another one.